One of the biggest advantages for buying a property in Queens is the different choices that you have for the type of home that is going to be best suited to you. So you could start out with a co-op or a condo, or perhaps a townhome would work better for you, or maybe a single family home where you get a driveway and a backyard and that extra privacy that you're looking for. But the one thing we offer so many potential buyers and investors is a multifamily property. So that's anything from a two-family home on up to an apartment building that has many, many different apartments right now in the market, up to 31 apartments. So today I'm going to do a deep dive on exactly how to list and sell your multifamily property, because it is vastly different than selling a single family home. Hold on, I'll be right back. Hi, I'm Mark Carton with Carton Real Estate Services in Queens, New York, and today I'm going to tell you everything you need to know about listing and selling a multifamily property. Now, I'm not going to really divulge any secrets. It's just that nobody is doing it. And I did not memorize these statistics. So right now, just in Queens, there are 1,280 multifamily properties for sale. And in the last year and a half, 938 listings have expired. That's 73%. So this is the biggest failure rate, the inability to sell a multifamily property, and it's astounding to me until I look at the MLS and I see the way that people are marketing their homes and not giving any information. So really, it shouldn't be a surprise, but it's sort of devastating to an owner who wants to move on into doing something else. So let's dive in. I'm going to be a little technological here and going to do a screen share. So there's a lot of information and I'm going to go right at it for you. Okay, so selling a multifamily property in Queens. I thought of that title all by myself. So here's what I want to tell you. A single family home, we all know how to do that. And you're either going to list with an agent or you're going to try and sell it for sale by owner. And I promise I'm going to do a video on for sale by owner, maybe next week. But when you're selling a multifamily home and you're putting it out there, you have to understand that this is a financial decision that a buyer is making. Okay, so you as the seller, when you bought your single family home, if you have one, you may own a two-family home and be renting out the other home. We're going to talk about that. But when you're looking for your personal residence, you are looking to buy with emotion. So you can picture your family being here. You can picture how you're going to use the different rooms, where you're going to put the TVs, and your car is going to be in the garage, and you may put a pool in the backyard or a deck or whatever you're going to do to make it your private kingdom, right? It's different with an investment property because the buyers are really just looking at this from the perspective of the financial viability, and is this the best place to put their money to earn money, whether they're going to sell it more short-term, maybe 5 or 10 years, or it's a long-term hold, perhaps they're saving this for their children to hand down, which is very common and a great way to accumulate wealth. So when it's a financial decision, the numbers have to work. It's not so much about, oh, this is pretty, or, I like this block. Investors, by and large, and I've said this for years, don't look to buy something to put a picture in their wallet and say, oh, look at this beautiful investment property I have. That's not the point. The point is to hold up your bank statement and say, look at this beautiful investment property that I have. Okay? It's all about the money. So diving into this, here are the statistics. Now, unfortunately, as you'll see at the top, the most up-to-date statistics, because of the Census Bureau, is 2017. So it's 5 years ago. It's better than nothing. This is all of the 5 boroughs, okay? There are 2,183,000 rental units. And if you look at the chart, this is broken up on this side. So all the different types of rental units. And then over here, condo co-ops and conventional homes, there are just over 1 million. So New York City, as the news will tell us in June of 2022, is very expensive for homeowners, and it's really getting much more expensive for renters. So for multifamily homeowners, property owners, with the news that the Rent Stabilization Board just increased what rental increases for rent stabilized apartments will be starting in October to 3.25% for 1 year and 5% for 2-year leases. That is a big boom for somebody who's looking to sell, because for the last couple of years, because of everything that's gone on, rent increases have either been zero or they have been artificially suppressed. So with all due respect and understanding to renters, right now I'm focused on owners and what the prospect is moving forward. So this is a great time to look to buy, but if you're putting your property on the market, it has to be seen. So this is everything I'm going to divulge to you right now. Moving on. So the approach between residential listing and a multifamily listing, 100% different. So the seller's mindset. I talk to a lot of sellers and they say, I don't want my tenants to know that I'm selling the property, or I don't want a for sale sign in front of the property. That's called keeping it a secret, and secrets are never good, but particularly for a multifamily, because many of the potential buyers are on your block. They drive by every day. They are potential investors who love the neighborhood and they want that opportunity, but it's not top of mind to where they're actively looking with a real estate agent or doing anything in an active way. They're more passive, and that for sale sign is going to be a big clue to them and help you move on to your next adventure. So, as I say, secrecy will delay or prevent the sale. Moving on, respect your tenants. So with all due respect, they're not dumb. They know something is going on. And I have been with landlords, home owners, property owners who will knock on the door to give me access and say, oh, he's the insurance guy. We just need to see the apartment for a minute. It really doesn't work well. So honesty is the best policy. You're going to see as I go into this more, what having access once up front will help you down towards the end, because you're going to be able to sell without having to bother the tenants numerous times, okay? Hopefully we can do this once, get everything recorded, pictures and videos and everything that your agent needs to best promote the property. So it's a combination of getting access in advance and putting up that for sale sign. It's super, super important. Okay. So there's 2 different types of multifamily properties. 1, 2 to 5 units. So it can be a 2-family home, which we're all familiar with. There are 3-family homes and 4-family homes. And then there are 5-family homes and 5-family homes with the ground unit that's either a retail store or a commercial space or a medical office, something like that. But the difference between 2 to 5 units and then going down to 6+ units is that you're not capped on how much rent you can charge. So as the climate changes for rents, and again, right now, rents are going crazy because of the unaffordability of a lot of potential buyers to purchase. Their leases are running out and they need to move. So it is crazy. for what landlords are asking, and they are getting these rents. So it's nice that you have the ability to increase your rent. You don't have to increase it, but you have the ability. So here's the statistics as of today, which is Sunday, June 26, 2022. There are 1,211 listings for 2 to 5 family homes properties, starting at $325,000, that's obviously for a 2-family home, all the way up to $3.7 million. Now, when we get to $3.7 million for a 5-unit apartment building, there's going to be some considerations. It's probably brand new. It probably has higher rents in a very desirable neighborhood. I mean, it's the perfect storm of great positive things. And the one thing that these 1,211 listings have in common for 99% is they don't give access to the building, even if you're pre-approved. They require just drive by and submit your offer. If I held up a box and I said, yeah, I can't show you inside the box, but tell me how much you want to pay me for it. This is how much I'm going to ask for. They're going to keep going. So you have to open the box, show all the sides of the box, and let everybody see everything so that your property is in contention for being purchased. All right. So moving on, if your building has 6 units or more, you already know this, then you are subject to rent stabilization, which means you have additional reporting to do to HPD. That's Housing Preservation Division. You have to do your DCHR paperwork, which is writing up a rent stabilized lease and then calculating that correctly. And then it's a lot, but you are working directly with the city on a continual basis and are liable for more oversight, okay? So the benefit of these buildings is that you are limited in your expenses. So your expenses aren't necessarily going to grow for having 6 or 8 or 10 or 12 apartments, especially depending on what the mix is and your setup as far as utilities. I'm going to go into that more. So all of these things differentiate 2 to 5 units. So 2 to 5 can be more mom and pop, although there are certainly corporations that own 2 to 5 unit multifamilies. But 6 plus, now we're talking more, a fully realized business opportunity. Okay, so this is what's important to a buyer. Now, you're a seller, you need to know, why aren't I getting offers if your property is listed? Because this list is what's important to them. And I rearranged it from most important to least. So let me just go through it. So location, number one in real estate, regardless of where it is, location, location, location. So the neighborhood, how does the neighborhood reflected of importance to your buyer? So that's something you can't change. But when you promote your property, you're going to promote the neighborhood, all the positive aspects and why tenants want to live in that neighborhood. Doesn't matter if the buyer wants to live in the neighborhood, they're probably not going to live in the neighborhood, but there's something attractive. And as your listing and your agent are going to point out, they are going to bring up every single thing as to, oh, I didn't know that. Oh, that's really interesting. Yeah, this really does offer a great opportunity. So the neighborhood, the block, the surrounding buildings, the feel and the vibe of the neighborhood, super important, because without that first piece of glue, location, everything else, you could have the best price, but if it's in a location the buyer is not interested in, it doesn't mean anything. Second is the cap rate. I'm going to go into what a cap rate is in detail, but just know this is the return on investment. The capitalization rate is what that means, but it's when you take the purchase price and you calculate how much the expenses are for the building versus what the income is that you're getting from all sources within the building. And then you divide that. And then you come up with your cap rate. Like I said, I'm going to give you the exact formula. But today, buyers are looking for 5% or more. Do properties for less than 5% sell? Every single day. But there's other considerations, because remember, most investors are buying long-term. So they want to see, what is the potential of this property? Okay. Proximity to transportation. That's number one. So most tenants are going to take the bus, the subway, or the train. And if they're close by within walking distance, then that's going to be more important. And in turn, your apartments are worth more money. In turn, your building is worth more money. Your proximity to grocery stores and laundry, if you don't have laundry as a service in your building. So these are all very important for day-to-day living for those tenants, and in turn, more appealing to the landlord when they get vacancies and they need to refill them. How is their building better than everybody else in the neighborhood? Okay, because it goes beyond price. All right, the condition of the building, the structure itself. So that's the exterior. Is the building in good shape? When a buyer comes up and looks at the building, what does it say? Now, this goes back to sense of arrival when we're talking about buying your personal home. So if it's in disrepair, then that's a turnoff. And to an investor, they say that's an expense. They're looking at your building not for how pretty it is. They're looking for what money is going to come out of my pocket right off the bat to bring this up to my standards or to the potential for a tenant wanting to live here. So that's what we are looking at and addressing. So the structure, the common areas, which is the front, if there are gardens or steps or the doorway or the intercom system, the lobby, the hallways, the stairways, the garbage and recycling area, the mailbox area. These are all the conditions, and it gives somebody a nice feeling to say, oh, I'd like to live here, even though it's not my goal, but I could see somebody living here. This is nice, pleasant surroundings. Then we go into the basement and we're going to look at whether it's oil heat or gas heat. We're going to look at the boiler, the hot water heater, the meters. Is every apartment separately metered for electric, gas, and hot water? If so, big bonus. That's a big plus. Then we're going to go up to the roof. And we're going to see what the state of the condition of the roof is. Very important. When we look at the apartments on the top floor, the number one thing we're going to look at is the roof, okay, the ceiling, because if there's water stains, that's where they're going to be. That's going to be an issue. And that is either going to kill your sale or it's going to severely drop the value. So moving on. Repairs and upgrades needed. So this is what we're looking at. Leaks. Oh, so good. Leaks, old mechanicals. That means the obsolescence of that furnace or boiler, and the hot water heater. If it's, leaking, you got trouble. That needs to be replaced. So a buyer is always going to err on the side of this needs to be replaced because they don't want to have any outstanding issues from tenants or in their pocketbook, okay? Old appliances within the apartments. So when were the apartments last renovated? What's the condition that the tenants have in the apartments? Now, you may want to hide this, and it's not going to work to your benefit. We're going to talk about addressing that afterwards. The poor condition of apartments and plumbing and roof issues. So all of these things need to be addressed in advance before you even think of listing the building. Okay, the size mix of the apartments. Again, this is something that's out of your control, but it's really important that this is explained in detail and focused on within the listing. So if it's a mix of 2 and 3 bedrooms or a mix of studios and one bedrooms, that's vastly different opportunities for a potential buyer because their income is going to be maxed, because studios are only ever going to be able to attract X amount of dollars of income versus a 3-bedroom or a 4-bedroom with maybe backyard access or parking or some other amenities is going to vastly increase the desirability of your building. The utilities, I touched on this earlier. It's more appealing when the building is metered for the tenants where they pay all utilities. And then the owner is only responsible for the common areas. So the electric in the hallways and the heat in the hallways, things like that, okay? If we're talking about selling a 2 or a 3-family home, that could be to where the buyer is going to live there. So it's going to be owner occupied and they're going to have 1 or 2 of the apartments for rent to offset their mortgage or just to bring in continued income. Their needs are a little bit different. Now, all of the above most likely are going to be important condition-wise and appeal, but sound transference. So if the walls or ceilings or floors are thin and they can hear from one room to another, one apartment from another, that's going to be a negative. And you may want to address that. Parking. So if the home offers parking, that's a great big plus. Separate entrances for each of the different units, great big plus. Again, it's not so much that you can change it, it's that you can highlight it. All right. And I will tell you, going back to the 938 expired multifamily listings over the last year and a half, most agents don't say anything in the listing about anything. And I am giving you a list of everything that can and should be said. Okay. These items will get your property sold. Moving on, overhead expenses. So the property taxes, the utility costs, the maintenance, what you pay the super, if there is a super, or who's doing those weekly chores, cleaning of the common areas, taking out of the trash, things of that nature. And then if there's a property management company. So all of these expenses, whatever they are, need to be detailed so that your agent has those because that all goes back to cap rate. These are the expenses that are needed and necessary and need to be true and recent. Okay, current vacancies. So if you have a 6-unit apartment building and 2 of the units are vacant, don't look at that as a bad thing. That's actually potentially a good thing, all right? Because it gives, number one, it gives you the ability to walk that apartment to show exactly how the floor plan is, the condition. It gives you the ability to upgrade that apartment. So if there are 6 and 2 are newly renovated, then score for you. That's a great benefit. But they can also, those apartments could be rent stabilized or they could be fair market. If they're rent stabilized, then the new tenant can be charged the maximum. If they're fair market, again, you could fill that apartment to increase your rental income and show that on the offering memorandum, which we're going to get into. But again, sometimes leaving it vacant could be a good thing too. So that's sort of a personal call. And then potential profit centers. So the profit centers are in your basement, adding a coin laundry. So this is a great benefit for tenants. And it's a profit center. It's going to make you money. This is really hands-off. There are third-party companies that will do everything. They will set up everything. It's going to use more water. It's going to use more electric and gas, depending on the setup of the washers and dryers, but it is going to pay for itself. And it's very, very appealing, again, for future rentals for tenants and particularly for a new owner. Storage lockers, depending on how much space you have. So instead of a tenant having to go rent a unit for storage outside of the building, to have that close by is definitely worth money, and it's empty space in your basement. great opportunity. And then parking. So if there are potential parking spaces, offering those for rent to your tenants adds additional revenue. So this is what the buyer is looking for. You need to tell them every potential option in your listing before they ever come to see it. Okay, moving on. Okay, so there are 3 different options when you are entertaining offers. Now, let's just flip back. Residential sale, there's 2 options. There's cash and there is financing, a mortgage. Extra bonus for an investment property is the one in the middle, 1031 exchange. So if you're not familiar with the 1031 exchange, that basically is the ability to defer the tax on the sale of a like-kind property. So very simply put, I sell my property, an investment anywhere, and now I have the proceeds and it's $2 million. I don't want to pay I don't want to pay the income tax on the $2 million. I want to kick the can down the road. So I need to reinvest the money into another investment property. Doesn't need to be a 6-unit building for another 6-unit building. It could be a warehouse for a 6-unit building. Not going to get into those details. Suffice it to say, this opens up your opportunity for potential buyers who are on a timeline. They only have X amount of days and months to complete the transaction. So they have 45 days from when their sale closed to reinvest, 45 days to find a new property, and then 180 days to close. The whole thing is 180 days. So you have that additional ability to sell to somebody, and you may be a 1031 exchange with your proceeds if you don't want to pay the taxes due upon sale. So this is a great additional incentive selling your investment property. But the word has to be out there, and you have to offer all this information that I'm telling you to attract a 1031 exchange buyer, because time is not on their side. Okay. The other benefit for cash buyers and for 1031 is that they are not going to have the contingencies that might mess up your sale, because they don't need an appraisal. They're not going to get an appraisal, and they have no financing. They're paying cash, real cash. But somebody who's getting a mortgage is going to put in an appraisal contingency and a financing contingency if their real estate lawyer has anything to say about it. And that appraisal contingency might mess you up. So again, leaning towards cash and 1031 exchange, those offers might be a little less money, but there's more surety that they're going to move forward. Okay. Marketing your property. So this is where it all comes together. So the more of these you have, the likelier you're going to sell. It's going to be successful. So I talked about the cap rate, which is the net income and the return on investment that a buyer is going to get. So that is determined by what you price your building at versus what your expenses and income are. So this all comes together. I'm going to show you and explain to you exactly what that is. So the closer you are in this market, 2022, to 5% or higher, the better. So if we work the numbers and it comes out that you want X amount of millions of dollars and the cap rate comes out to 2%, that is not even worth taking the time and effort to put it on the market. 2% return on investment when there are properties offering 4 and 5%, it's not going to happen. It's just not going to happen. Second, the offering memorandum. So this is where we're going to get into the details, and I've got to get a little technical here, and I'm going to bring this up. Let's see. I can do this. I did it. It's amazing how I am thrilled with myself. Okay. So an offering memorandum is something that would be attached to your listing It is very detailed, and it really is the silent salesman for your property. So I'm just going to show you an example of one. So this is where we're going to get into the nitty-gritty details. The sales price, the list price is 1.375 million. The whole property is 4,560 square feet. There are 6 apartments. So if you divide 6 apartments by 1.375 million, it's $300, excuse me, divide 4,560 by the price, it is $300 a square foot, okay? 6 into the price comes to 229,000 a door. That's the technical term. How much is it a door? And then we get to the cap rate, which is 3.96, which I'm going to take the liberty and say it's 4%. So this is how we're going to get to this number, all right? The rent per year for this building is $90,771. There's no other income, so it's $90,771. The expenses annually, $19,000 for taxes. Here's fuel. I don't need to go through all of this. Let's just drop to the bottom. $54,446 is your net operating income. Why? Because we added up all of the expenses. We subtracted them from the annual income, and this is what we come to: net operating income, better known as NOI. And when we take the NOI of $54,000 and we divide it into the price that you're asking, it comes up with the cap rate. There's your formula. Okay, so 4%, pretty darn decent. Now, the offering memorandum goes into detail because different buyers want to see different information. So we break it up every which way that they could imagine. How many 1-bedrooms are there? There's 1. How many 2-bedrooms? There's 5. What's the average rent? What's the monthly rent? How many fair market, not rent stabilized, are there? There's 1 2-bedroom. What's the breakdown of rent stabilized? And is there any retail or commercial? There is not. Next page. We have to show the rent roll because this is going to show the legal rent, the maximum that can be charged for an apartment, what's currently being charged, when the lease date starts and when it ends. We tell the size, we tell which apartment this is, whether it's rent stabilized or fair market. And all we do is we redact the tenants' names to protect their privacy, okay? Very important, everyone's going to ask for your rent roll. I have to say that 8 out of 10 listings do not show the rent roll. It's a non-starter. This is information that's very basic. Okay, the expense report, it's a breakdown again of each one of the expenses. And then you may be asked during the due diligence, meaning once a buyer has submitted an offer and you've come to an agreement, they're going to set a period of 7 to 10 days usually to go through the books and to see the details of the tenant's leases, perhaps, or the different expenses. So your monthly fuel charges or what you're paying exactly, that it all comes to this, okay? Then interior photos. So for this particular building, I did not have immediate access to the individual apartments. So I showed absolutely everything else, and what reflects is the condition and how well kept it is. Here's the backyard views. These are all available as larger pictures. This is just to give a potential buyer a sense of what the building is offering. And then the roof. And then we go into the floor plans. This is very, very important. It's giving the dimensions. It's showing the layout. It's explaining quite explicitly what this building is like. This is not available currently on 99.9% of listings. So please, you must insist on floor plans when you're listing your multifamily property. You must. This is all the different apartments and how they're laid out. This is an entire floor from front to back, including the hallway, all the dimensions. And then this is a property summary. So it tells the zoning, it tells how many units, when it was built, what type of ownership, and that's me. So now we're going to jump over to the rest of what you should be showing potential buyers. So this is known as a 3D tour. And what a potential buyer gets to see, so this is the basement, is as if they're there. So this is incredibly strong. I'm going to make this bigger, but this is the stairs coming down. Now they get to see the ceiling. They get to see every inch of the property. And now they're going to come in and we're going to walk down. They're going to see the storage and they get to see all the meters as close as they want. I'm going to hop over here, very close. They get to see the gas meters, and then with a little bit of guidance, they get to see the water meter. I'm taking you through this because this is so powerful that a buyer does not need to leave their desk to see, is this something I'm interested in? Do I want to pursue this versus the 1,279 other listings that I might potentially want to spend my money on? So look how beautiful that hot water heater is, and that furnace is, and this whole mechanical room is. This property has potential. Okay, here's one washing machine. So that might be potential for a profit center here. And here we get to see, this is the heat meter. And here we get to see, this is the oil meter. Again, incredibly strong, the use of technology to help move along the sale and differentiate your property from everybody else's. So going to get out of that. And then the other thing you want to do is a walking tour. So
hi, this is the virtual tour for 99-31 42nd Avenue in Corona, Queens, New York.
This sounds familiar.
This is a 6-unit apartment building with one bedroom, 1 bath, and 5.
I'm going
You
to
also
skip
have
ahead.
buses close by, so it's just had it unlocked for easy entry for you.
So
here's your mailboxes.
Here's the lobby.
This is your hallway.
Again, this is the next best thing to being there without leaving your desktop.
We're on the first floor, and this is 1F.
So
1 bedroom, 1 bath.
all of
You'll be able to
these,
see the floor plans.
I'm going to stop that. Let's go back to hello. Let's see. Oh my goodness. Let's go back to my presentation so I don't miss anything for you. Okay, so I showed you the offering memorandum, the pictures, the video walking tour, the 3D tour, and the floor plans. Everything comes together. This is an attack on all fronts so that your listing is above all others, okay? And that you have prepared. So the one thing that you're not seeing in this particular property are the different apartments. Now, I actually do have videos of 3 of the 6 apartments. I'm just not going to share them on the internet for privacy of those tenants. So ultimately, the buyer, there is a buyer for this property, did get to see 3 of the apartments virtually and 3 of the apartments in person and was able to move ahead. But it was only because of the combination of all this disclosure and the tenant's approval and working with, because it wasn't a secret or what are you talking about, that the building is for sale. So honesty is the best policy, as I said earlier. So this was a lot of information. I hope it's very helpful that no matter who you work with, that you get this degree of exposure and transparency for potential buyers, because this will help you not only get the closest to what you're asking for, and that the price that you're asking for, unlike residential property, which has a lot of emotion involved, and in a fast moving market, how fast can I scoop this property up? Multifamily properties are based on facts and they're based on financial evidence. So let's give them everything. So if you can meet your real estate agent halfway and give them at least half of these things, you're going to get much closer to selling your property and moving on to your next adventure. If you have any questions about anything that I talked about, or questions about potentially your building that you're thinking of selling, please feel free to reach out to me, and I wish you the best of luck with the sale of your multifamily property.